China's first freight train on the new Silk Road rolled into Tehran in February, bringing sanction-weary Iran, China-manufactured products and economic hope. CCTV's Wang Tongxuan joins us now for more. And Tongxuan, we recently saw that first train from China go into Tehran. What does this mean for China's One Belt, One Road project?
Anand, the Yiwu-Tehran train is a significant part of Beijing's plans for regional integration. China's Belt and Road project, also referred to as the New Silk Road, includes plans to build roads, ports, railways and other infrastructure from China to the Middle East through Central, South and Southeast Asia. China sees Iran as a regional power, so the trains carrying Chinese goods will not terminate in Tehran but run further onto European markets through a massive network connecting China with different parts of Asia and Europe. China is Iran's biggest trading partner, accounting for most of Tehran's oil exports. Besides facilitating China-Iran trade, these rail lines will contribute to Iran's emergence as an important Eurasia trade hub. So with this infrastructure development and construction, the two nations have paved the way for greater links along the Silk Road economic belt, Anand.
Now, President Xi Jinping visited Tehran earlier this year. Where do China-Iran relations stand today, and how are these relations between the two countries expected to evolve?
Well, President Xi's visit came just days after Western-led sanctions on Iran were lifted. During his trip, the two countries agreed to elevate their ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. The Chinese President Xi Jinping said, in history, China and Iran have had no fundamental conflicts, and the friendship between them goes back more than 2,000 years because of the ancient Silk Road, which used to be a key trading route linking the Chinese and Persian civilizations. The Belt and Road Initiative has offered really the two countries a whole new opportunity to rejuvenate their old relations. In the future, in terms of the pragmatic cooperation, many believe there can be great potential in such fields as infrastructure, high-speed railway, natural gas and oil pipelines. So in general, the Belt and Road Initiative will not only enhance their economic and trade relations, but also provide business opportunities for the people of both countries, Anand.
Thanks, Tongxuan. That's CCTV's Wang Tongxuan reporting from Beijing. Joining us now from Tehran, Mohammad Marandi is an Iranian academic and professor at the University of Tehran. From Beijing, He Wenping is a professor and director of African Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. And from Frankfurt, Germany, F. William Engdahl is an author, lecturer and political risk analyst. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Dr. Marandi, we've just had the first cargo train from China arrive in Tehran, what the Chinese news agency Xinhua describes as a milestone in reviving the Silk Road. What does it mean for Iran, which, as we know, has been under severe international sanctions for the past few years?
Well, it is very important. The Iranian economy traditionally had been focused on imports and exports from the Persian Gulf region and Turkey. More recently, since the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, Iran's trade relations with Afghanistan, but more importantly with Iraq, have also expanded dramatically. But the road to Central Asia and the Silk Road, which would lead from Iran to China, is, I think, a development that goes beyond anything that we've seen in recent decades. The potential is extraordinarily large, and it will develop the Iranian north as well as the northeast, and it will also make many products for Iranians much more inexpensive, especially agricultural goods in Central Asia. The fact that China also wants to develop the west of its country makes this even more significant. It's also an opening for Iran to export potentially oil and gas to China through Central Asia.
Dr. He, the One Belt, One Road initiative, that's the Chinese Regional Economic Initiative, it will open up ancient trading routes, reopen those routes. What role does Iran play in China's overall plan?
Well, I think Iran, because it enjoys very important strategic position, and also it serves a link with Europe and the Middle East and also China. So certainly it will play a very fundamental role for this One Belt, One Road initiative implementing. Like this cargo train now finally arrived in Tehran. I think this is a very important milestone things, because not only for Iran to further expand its trade links with not only those Middle East countries, as my Iranian colleague has mentioned, with Iraqi, with Turkey, and also links with the Far East like China. And for China's One Belt, One Road initiative, this is a very practical thing, needs to be celebrated because One Belt, One Road has been put forward right now. Basically, it hasn't been implemented in a big step. We know that China-Pakistan corridor, that project now is under constructing, but now this railway, now the cargo train now has finally arrived in Tehran, can be regarded as another very feasible and tangible thing has been achieved. So I think through this Belt Road, especially Iran, because Iran enjoys a lot of advantages for helping Belt Road initiative implementing, because first, it's quite stable. Second, it has very rich resources, and China has already enjoyed a long time good relationship with Iran, even when Iran under the sanction given by the Western countries. And thirdly, I think Iran has a very strong industrial base and has a very highly education. Those graduate students' education level is quite high. So given all those factors and advantages, so certainly in China, I think academic circle almost has reached a consensus saying Iran should enjoy the highest and the strongest feasibility to implement this Belt Road initiative all around the way.
Right, William, these are, of course, small beginnings, but both China and Iran are looking at growing and developing this relationship. They're talking about this relationship being worth something like $600 billion over the next 10 years. President Xi Jinping has been to Iran. He's met with President Hassan Rouhani. What does it look like from the United States and from Western countries? I mean, do they see this burgeoning relationship as a threat?
The United States is losing power everywhere. The dollar system that was established at Bretton Woods in 1944 is choking with public debt and private debt. The unemployment levels are at 1930s depression level, but they're not accurately reported by the government labor department. And now they see the coming together of their worst nightmare in terms of geopolitics, Brzezinski, Kissinger, and so forth, and that is the coming together of the nations of Eurasia, Russia, China, Iran. I speak of a golden triangle that's developing between those three countries, and interestingly enough, they're all looking toward gold backing for their national currencies rather than paper dollar backing, which is becoming increasingly worthless. And I think the reaction in Washington, as it's beginning to dawn on them, the genius of this One Belt, One Road, new economic Silk Road initiative, to which the European, or the Eurasian rather, economic union with Russia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Armenia, and so forth, that links up a landmass across Eurasia that will be the most economically vibrant place on this entire planet for at least the next 50 years, if we're not foolish enough to destroy the planet with nuclear catastrophe. And I don't think we will. I think it will succeed.
Dr. Marandi, as Dr. He pointed out, the relationship between China and Iran goes back a long way, even to those dark days when Iran was under sanctions, when the West tried to isolate Iran. How would you characterize the overall relationship between these two countries?
I think the relationship is extraordinarily good. I think after the visit to Tehran by the Chinese president, the two countries will probably be able to take a few steps even further and expand their relations at a more rapid pace. The comprehensive joint plan of action that was signed between the Iranians and the P5+1, I think, helps. But even more important, or at least just as important, is the fact that countries like China and Russia are increasingly seeing Iran as the most reliable partner in this part of the world. So countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates, which export Wahhabism, or at least support extremist groups and Wahhabi groups across the board, they are becoming increasingly they're creating fear among countries that have Muslim populations, because there's a concern that these countries will export their ideology to those states. So what we see now in Nigeria, for example, with regards to Boko Haram, or in Somalia, Al-Shabaab, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIL, all of these have the Wahhabi ideology that is exported from countries like Saudi Arabia. And the biggest obstacle that could actually damage the One Silk, One Road initiative is the spread of this extremism into Central Asia, which would be a major security risk for all the countries involved, but it would also prevent the expansion of trade relations. So I think that now that this global situation is changing, and taking into account the extremism that that has been growing in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, this is itself an incentive for China and Iran and Russia, as well as Central Asian countries, to cooperate more intensely, and especially on security issues alongside economic ones.
Dr. He, China depends on Iran for something like, well, 10 to 15% of its energy needs. Is this relationship being driven to a large extent by that Chinese need, or is that perhaps too much of a narrow definition of the relationship between these two countries?
I think both can tell the motivation. Of course, China, since 1993, China has turned itself from an oil exporter becoming an oil importer. And with this high economic growth rate has been there for decades, and this oil demanding also is getting higher and higher. So that's why we rely our oil import mainly on the Middle East, because those very high quality of those crude oil. So that's one of the reasons. And the second reason, as you rightly put forward, is because China-Iran also enjoys a very good relationship. So even under, I mentioned, even under the sanction time, and China still served as the biggest trade partner with Iran. So this biggest trade partner and the biggest oil consumer for Iran's oil has been, I think, is the two heads China now has. So with this good historical foundation, I think now Iran has entering a new phase of development, given this sanction has been lifted. So Iran, once again, back to the international economy. So we and China also, now we have been implementing this One Belt, One Road. So this is a kind of historical opportunity, both for Iran and for China. Now, I think given those very good historical foundation, for example, China has engaged with a lot of infrastructure construction in Iran, like the subway and those railway and also the road construction. So China also enjoyed this competitive advantage. So in terms of infrastructure, as well as those energy and the resources cooperation will be developed further. That's for sure, because Iran now can have their power to export their crude oil without any limitation or those sanctions. So that will say another. I think the cooperation will getting wider and deeper.